The color, Cloud White. The company, Benjamin Moore. This is Hue Review, so let's get on to reviewing. I'm James from the Paint People, and this, of course, is Hue Review, the premier paint color review show on YouTube, where my goal is to review every single color that's ever been put out by these paint companies. We got a lot of time to get through these. This show is all about vibe, versatility, and my verdict. Is this a color that I would use and recommend to all of you? And if so, how would I use it? Before I dive into this color, these are some other alternatives from different competitors. If you're not a fan of Benjamin Moore paint for whatever reason, these are some loose color matches in other paint companies that you can use that won't be identical to Cloud White, but at least it'll give you a similar sort of feel, similar essence, dare I say a similar vibe. But the only way to get Cloud White for real is to just get it in Benjamin Moore paint. Sorry, color matchers, but that perfect match is pretty much impossible to do. And I know, I was a color matcher for years. Okay, so let's get into the vibe. What is the vibe of Cloud White? Is it gonna keep me floating on cloud nine? God. I wrote in my notes, make a cloud joke, and that's the best I came up with, so you're welcome. Cloud White is an interesting color because it's one that I really remember at the very beginning of my paint career. When I used to work at the paint store and when I used to help with the family painting business, Cloud White was all the rage. Like before Simply White and Chantilly Lace were like the best whites by Benjamin Moore, this was the go-to white. And I think why it's remained one of Benjamin Moore's best-selling colors is it does a nice job at keeping this lovely airiness, this brightness, and this warmth that isn't yellow dominant. It's not just a white can of paint that has been dosed with some yellow colorant. It has a little more to it, a little more beige leaning. Dare I say it has like a touch of like a taupey sort of feel, like a little bit of a neutral softening that tones it down ever so slightly. And I think that's an important thing to distinguish between the other warmer whites that exist, because Cloud White just feels softer, kind of like a nice pillowy cloud. Even though you can't really touch a cloud, it's just vapor and condensation. Cumulonimbus. Let's get into some technical jargon. The LRV is an 85 out of 100. And this means Cloud White reflects 85% of the light that hits it, which makes it a very bright color. Not the brightest color, not even as bright as Oxford White, which is a color we recently reviewed, but it is still in that upper echelon of paint colors. It's interesting because I would kind of call this an off-white. It does have a noticeable amount of colorant in it and warmth that does prevent it from feeling just like a straight-up stark white, which we'll get into in a second. But in actual practice, when you are using it as, let's say, a wall color and you're just putting it all over a space and really just color washing an area with Cloud White, it will feel pretty white. It's not going to feel like a beigey sort of color, a yellowy warm cream or an ivory. In a lot of cases, it will just end up feeling like white. It'll become the neutral of the space, which I think is really, really nice. Because there is a fine line. If you go a little too warm, then you're no longer in off-white territory. You're in that light beige category, which this one isn't. So yes, clearly a warmer white paint color, but not so simplistic and yellow leaning. It does have that little bit of that creaminess that just keeps it nice and toned down, which I think is a nice touch. So that's the vibe check done. What about versatility? How versatile is this paint color inside and outside of the home? This I think is a very important factor when it comes to paint colors. The more versatile the color is, the more ways you can use it, and also the less of a chance you'll need to repaint it in the next year or two, because it can fit in a number of different ways and design styles, which is really, really cool. I give it a high rating for versatility in the home. Similar to Oxford White, this is a paint color that I have seen used all over a home, on the walls, on the trim, on the ceiling. In fact, I would almost recommend that in certain cases if you are thinking of using a white paint color on your walls and Cloud White is one you're really gravitating towards. You probably want to continue that onto your baseboards as well. Just have it sort of all the same colors so they're not really clashing with one another. Just be sure that you're using wall paint on the walls, trim color on the trim, and the real difference between those is the finish. So typically your wall paint will have a flatter finish, whether it's matte or eggshell, and then your trim is going to have maybe a satin, pearl, semi-gloss, high gloss if you're feeling rambunctious. And that's for practicality reasons, because your trim is going to be washed a lot more often, and it's also close to where your toesies are on your baseboards that are going to be kicking it sometimes. I mean, I don't wear my shoes indoors, but that's just me. Not judging you if you do. Exterior-wise, I would also call this a high versatility color. I think the warmth in Cloud White really does help sort of balance itself out when against the sun's bright, cool lighting. So the two meeting can kind of neutralize each other and just give you a nice, soft, but still pretty bright white. I prefer brighter whites like this to be used not necessarily as the main body color, because that can be a little much. Just test it out a little bit on one area before you commit to it. See if you like that amount of brightness. But anything else, like certain trim, maybe the door you want to be white, window frames, things like that, I think it's a great choice. All right, so what's the verdict? How would I use this color? Where would it fit on the Paint People palette pyramid? This is going to be a support color for me because I mainly use cloud white as a trim color on the baseboards, doors, and frames. I think it can be used on the walls. It is just one of those things where because it's a white, it's a lighter color, it could be trickier to apply depending on the product you use. It might require a few extra coats. And also it's not as forgiving when it comes to smudges and nicks and bumps and scrapes. Because it is so bright, it's going to reveal a lot of those imperfections, typically speaking. So maybe a main color sometimes, I've seen it happen, but mostly it's going to be a support color for me. So that's how I'd use it. But would I? Currently, no. And hey, kind of hard to say because cloud white is one of my favorite colors, really. It's one that I've used on many projects, and I have nothing against it. I just think there's another bright, warm white that I would maybe use instead of it. But cloud white's still good. Like, I feel bad for saying no, but it is what it is. Let me know if you want a palette pyramid using cloud white in the comment section below, because I can put it together for you in a video. Also, if you want more content, we have our Patreon, which has exclusive videos every single Sunday that you can only find on there. And if you're a Prime member, you get your own personalized mini color palette from me every 3 months. Check the description for all that information. And we got another video right over here. Crazy.